You're listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Man, we got the local, the state, the national, covering down on all of the issues. And yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome to it. It is the second favorite day of the week. It is what we like to call around here Camel Day, otherwise known as Hump Day. Hit it.
Uh-oh. Guess what day it is? Guess what day it is? Mike. What day is it, Mike? Leslie, guess what today is?
It's Hump Day.
Woo-hoo! Yeah, Boomer's already smiling. I'm glad. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good.
Did you go out dressed as Tigger last night?
I was Tigger.
You were awesome.
From Winnie the Pooh.
You were a good dad.
It was a blast.
That's good. That's good. I told you my son went out. I showed you pictures.
Yes.
He was dressed as Luigi and my little grandson was Mario.
Those were epic.
It was good stuff. All right. Well, hey, we got a great show laid on for you. It's 4 o'clock on Wednesday that we do the thing that we also do on Hump Day, and that's the Grand Council with Dale Jackson and Jeff Poor. They'll be on with us, so stay tuned for that one. Grand Council, Dale Jackson, Jeff Poor. And then on top of that, man, the Triple Dipper. Wow, hit it.
The Triple Dipper. 3 stories you've got to know.
That's right, the Triple Dipper, 3 stories, 3 themes, if you will, that you got to know while we run today's show. Number 1, go woke, go broke. All right, listen, I'm not just talking about companies. We're going to talk about instances of go woke, go broke in state government. We're going to talk about go woke, go broke in business. We're going to talk about go woke, go broke in the entertainment industry. It's out there. People are sick of it, and they're voting with their wallets. So, yeah, we'll talk about that. Number 1, Triple Dipper, go woke, go broke. Number 2, on the home front. All right, there's a lot of concern right now, like legitimate concern, not just like social media concern, but like public officials who should know things concerned, saying that we need to keep an eye out on the security of our home front, right here at home. The home front. We have had a epic disaster through the southern border. They're catching people on the terrorist watch list, and we just cannot help but be concerned about what is happening on the home front. So we'll talk about that in great detail. Brace yourselves for it. And then number 3 on the Triple Dipper, assuming I can get through everything and do it, we're going to talk about what I call state versus state. You know, it's amazing when you look at it, the fact that, you know, states, they can be polar opposite. Case in point, Florida, California. What are the numbers? What do the numbers say about Alabama? State versus state. Where are we right now? Are we one of those people want to move to? Are we one of those that has high quality of life? Where are we in the education rankings? All that matters. State versus state. We'll talk about it. Number 3. On the Triple Dipper. All right, let me jump over here to my opening comments, my monologue. Got to remind you guys, my monologue is sponsored by Southern Immediate Care. The Rightside Way monologue every single day, sponsored by Southern Immediate Care, a chain of clinics all around our listening area, 5 locations in the Birmingham area, places in the Northeast like at Gadsden, Anniston, Atala. Listen, Southern Immediate Care open 7 days a week. Proud to have them as a sponsor, and they are the sponsor daily of the Rightside Way monologue. All right, so let me tell you, and I'm just gonna be honest. This one might be actually hard for me to do. Today would have been my dad's 84th birthday, and I say would have, because he passed away 10 years ago, when the Agent Orange that he had been exposed to in Vietnam finally caught up with him. And my dad was larger than life to me. He was a career Army officer. He had 6 Bronze Stars and 2 Air Medals, all for valor, earned during 2 very hot tours in Vietnam. He was my dad. He was the best man at my wedding, and he was a role model in many ways. Today would have been his birthday. My very first memory of him was as a toddler on the day he came home from his first tour. I could still see him standing in the doorway in my mind's eye. And I'll be honest with you, I miss him every day. Now, Dad didn't talk about Vietnam much. He was proud of his time there, proud of the men he served with, stayed in touch with a number of them. He was an active member of the Black Horse Association because his second tour was with the 11th Armored Cavalry Regiment. Their symbol is a black stallion reared up on its hind legs. Dad used to like to poke fun at anybody else who claimed to be cavalry. He liked to say, well, there's cav, and then there's regimental cav. When I was just getting into the idea of serving in the military myself, I used to go out in the garage and rummage through his old footlockers. Man, those old footlockers, they smelled like old Army. Like a mix of boot polish and old leather and Brasso with some aging paper and old fatigues all blended together. Some of y'all know exactly the smell I'm talking about. Now, I knew that my dad had been in the thick of things when he was over there, but I really didn't know much about it, because like I said, he didn't tell stories much about it. Well, this one particular day, I had just been learning recently how to read a topographic map, how to determine grid coordinates, how to establish a bearing on a compass and shoot an azimuth and terrain associate if I had to. I'd also been learning the skill of how to call for artillery fire, how to call for a medevac. So on one particular day, as I was rummaging around in his old school green wooden footlockers looking for some cool stuff that I could use, I found a well-worn, folded, very creased-up map. It was a map of some part of the Central Highlands of Vietnam. It had been laminated to make it waterproof. The laminate was old and yellowing, and along one edge of the margins, in his handwriting, underneath the laminate, made it a permanent part of the map, was the unmistakable outline for a 9-line medevac report. And right above that was the format for calling for artillery fire. And that call for fire section caught my attention because it still had coordinates written on it in grease pencil, even though it had to be 15 plus years old. So I was standing there trying to make heads or tails of it when my dad came in the garage and he asked what I was doing. And I held up the map and I asked him what I was looking at. Well, he got a thoughtful look on his face. He took the map and he studied it for a minute. And then he read the old coordinates and he began to trace his finger over the grid lines on the map. And finally he said, well, you see that hill right there? And he pointed to it with his finger. And I said, yes, sir. He took a deep breath and he said, I was advising a South Vietnamese infantry company, and this was my last day in the bush. We were on top of this hill. Had a whole North Vietnamese battalion trying to get up the hill to us. I was calling in artillery, but my position was on such a steep slope that the only way I could adjust fire was to stand up, look down on them right below me, hunker back down, and call in more rounds. That was when I began to fully appreciate where he had been and what he had been doing. It was also one of the only stories that I knew, but there were a couple of others. Hanging on the wall in my study is my dad's Bowie knife. It's old and weathered and hard. The wooden handle's all scuffed up. The brass hilt and the blade are tarnished almost black. Dad carried that knife in Nam, and he told me he used it for cutting vines and coconuts. Well, like I said, I only heard one or two stories about his tours in Vietnam over the years. I mean, there were snippets here and there, but only a few real stories. But one of those stories was about that knife. Dad said he had this little South Vietnamese guy who was good at throwing knives. And he was always pestering my dad about that big old Bowie knife that Dad had hanging on his side. He used to show off his throwing skills and then look at Dad and say, die away, you throw a big knife, you throw a big knife. And Dad would say, no, just for chop. And Dad wasn't flashy. He wasn't a show-off. I mean, he was a big man, 6'4", way over 200 pounds. But he didn't like to get into these little contests, right? But one day, apparently, he just had enough. He decided to prove to this guy that it was not a throwing knife. So he pulled out that big honking 10-inch blade from its sheath, and he pointed at a tree like 20 feet away and threw it. And he said to his shock, it hit right where he said it would. It sunk that blade like 3 inches deep in the trunk. He said he actually had to brace one foot against the trunk of the tree just to pull it out. The little guy never asked him to throw it again. And my dad would laugh and say, it's a good thing because there's no way I could do that twice. But if you'll indulge me here on my dad's birthday, I need to tell you one more story. It's the only other one I know, and it tells me, though, that there was something special about him coming home. You see, it's my understanding that sometime during his second tour, he was assigned the duty of being the paymaster for his squadron. This was the old days back in the Army when you got paid in person and you had to sign for your pay. They called it payday activities. Well, Dad was supposed to catch a chopper out to one of the more remote fire bases to handle payday when a young first lieutenant apparently came in and asked if he could hop on the same chopper out to the fire base. Well, Dad didn't know him. Hadn't ever seen him before. He told the LT that the manifest was already full. He'd have to catch the next flight, but the lieutenant was insistent that he had to report to the fire base ASAP. And then he just said, could you please assign me the paymaster duties and I'll do it for you. And finally, Dad agreed. And the guy took his place on the Huey and they flew off, but they never got there. You see, the chopper was shot down. Everyone on board was killed. But when they did the recovery operation, there was no trace of the lieutenant. There was nothing, no body, no equipment, nothing. So my dad made inquiries, but no one had any record of this young lieutenant. No one knew who he was. He was a mystery. A guy who showed up at the right time, took my dad's place, and by doing so, probably saved his life. Well, the first time I heard that story, I was already an adult. My dad told it one day at Whitesburg Baptist Church in Huntsville. He said that to the very end, he believed that an angel had taken his place. I reckon so, and I'm glad. My dad retired in the early 80s, earned his doctorate, became a successful businessman. He was the state finance director for the state of Alabama. He was the only man to have been district governor of Rotary twice. He ran for governor in 1998. I believe he wished he had done more, but as he lay on his deathbed, he was taken aback by the number of people who kept coming to see him to let him know that he had done more than he'd ever known he did. I really wish I knew more of the stories, but the ones I do know, they tell me a lot. So happy birthday, Dad. And that's a wrap for the Right Side Way. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Just making it cool to be a conservative. Well, the text lines blew up, and I really appreciate all of y'all. I hope I can read these texts. That monologue was just hard enough to do as it was, but some of y'all are saying some wonderful things. I'll tell you what, I'll get a few of them. Text lines are open, 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. Call it or, text it, same number. Brian from Huntsville. The call for artillery support, the knife throwing, the missed chopper ride, all have a common theme, danger close. Thanks to your dad. I'm not going to be able to read these. Yeah, gummit. Wow. Anyway, got some great texts in there, and I'll work my way through them, and I appreciate all of y'all saying that. Good stuff. All right, let's talk about something else. Not the least of which is that last night was Boomer's Tigger debut on the world.
So something about Boomer. Let's just say I enjoy dressing up. And so,
well, hang on, let's clarify.
That's what I'm about to do. Continue to clarify. So just for fun, like Halloween, and we actually have a party during Christmas.
I saw it last year.
Yeah, it's a costume party during Christmas, and it's a character Christmas party. So we enjoy doing that.
Weren't you the snowman from Frozen last year or something?
No, I was the abominable snowman last year.
That's
Bumbles.
what it was. Yes,
Bumbles from the claymation Christmas. Old school movie.
And you were sweating like a mug, too.
Man, and last night I was sweating too in the Tigger outfit. But man, I've enjoyed. I used to make all my costumes because it was more fun. But then now I just don't have time to do any of that. So I either have to find it, borrow it, or one of those two. So basically,
we continue to peel back the layers of Boomer like an onion.
Layers of Boomer, yeah.
The layers of Boomer.
That's what it is. But it's fun, and what was even more fun for me last night was, of course, little man dressed up.
He was a baseball player, right?
He was a baseball player, and he rocked it. And then my little girl, she didn't want to touch an outfit last night, which was funny. But then I actually got McQueen to dress up yesterday, and that she does not do that very often, guys. And it made my day, and I think she enjoyed it. So
well, what's funny is my son and daughter-in-law.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I expected this. But we got the pictures last night. So my little man, he's 4. He was Mario from Mario Brothers, and he was spot on. Had the mustache, everything. And my son dressed up as Luigi. So they were together.
That's awesome.
Trick or treating, and then little bitty. That's my granddaughter. Little bitty, who's a year and a half. She was Princess Peach.
Oh,
but my daughter-in-law was also Princess Peach with her.
Both.
And I'm like, well, this is awesome. So we got incredible pictures.
That
incredible
is
pictures.
Great.
Well, good. I'm glad y'all had a good night.
Yeah, I bet John from Huntsville dressed up.
Yeah.
I don't know what he dressed up as, but I just have a feeling. Or he ate all those corn dogs, one of the two.
Yes. Oh.
Well, he couldn't get out. He maybe couldn't have got out of the house with all the corn dogs.
Corn dogs will wear you out, man. So, by the way, I'm going to get some of these text messages because I just have to. But just so you know, on my Twitter account, I just posted a while ago, and it's already getting some attention. By the way, if you're on Twitter and you don't follow me, go to it. It's @Sin, it's SEN, @Sin Phil Williams. Here's the thing, Boomer. We are now past we're into November now, right? Today, November 1st. Okay. You've already got your Christmas decorations up, so you're already in the mood.
I'm already in.
I know Charlene's already getting hers out. I mean,
your house will be dressed tonight.
Oh, there was one little tree already in the corner. I was like, where did that come from? But yeah, we're getting there. But here's my question: Die Hard is a Christmas movie. Prove me wrong.
Man, I love Die Hard. I mean, I watch it every Christmas, so to me, it is a Christmas movie.
It's a man's Christmas.
It's a man's Christmas movie.
So I posted it on social media, and like within minutes, I've got people chiming in.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. I guess it all depends on who you are.
Well,
I mean,
if you're like a little beta male soy boy, then you don't like it.
Yeah.
See how I just challenge the manhood of anyone? No one's gonna. Oh, I guess I can't say anything now because Phil's gonna call me a soy boy. No. James from Harvest has checked in and says John probably dressed up as a corn dog after all that. LOL. That's what he says. Mark from Red Bay. Phil, your dad's a hero to all of us. Thanks for sharing. Thank you, brother. Appreciate that. John from Huntsville did just chime in. Says, Boomer, you do not earn extra points for dressing up as Tigger because a tiger is not a camel.
No, I know, John, but you only gave me a couple hours
But
after the comment. I couldn't make a
and
comment.
let's be clear. You already had the Tigger costume.
Right, I already had it, so I
right.
couldn't change it.
I heard you stole it from a church, is what I heard.
I did.
Okay.
I gave it back.
Raven from Russellville. Happy birthday to your dad, Colonel, from an old war horse. Salute rendered, Colonel. Thank you. Thank you, Raven. Tracy from Athens says that was his guardian angel. Yep. Gary H., who knows what he's talking about. He says, happy birthday and Alon's to your dad. Gary, I'm assuming that you're a black horse. So thank you for that. And yeah. And by the way, Gary's the one who had asked me, have you ever thought about having Jeff Strucker on as a guest? I would love to have Jeff Strucker on as a guest, so I need to figure that out. He was one of the Battle of Mogadishu Rangers. But yeah, Alon's to you, Gary H. Lewis from Trinity says, Bumbles bounce. Yes, they do. Brian from Huntsville. Lost my mom a few. This is Brian S. I'm sorry, from Huntsville. We have more than one. Brian S. from Huntsville. Lost my mom a few years ago. I'm choked up with you. Really appreciate the stories about your dad. Thank you, sir. JT Lacey Springs. Thanks for sharing that story. Makes me know how much dads are missed. Yes, indeed. Leanne from Huntsville. You know that angel made it possible for your dad. All right, I'm done. I'm done. All right, Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Just, covering down on some major ground across the northern half of the most beautiful, beautiful, beautiful state in the nation. This one right here, Alabama. And I mean to say, y'all, listen, this show goes way down to south of Birmingham, up north of Huntsville, Tuscaloosa, back to Gadsden, parts of Georgia, Tennessee, Mississippi. All thrown in just for good measure. And by the way, I just saw Jerry from Hoax Bluff just chimed in. You see that? Jerry from Hoax Bluff. We love you, Jerry from Hoax Bluff. I know who that is. Glad to have you in the audience. John M. from Huntsville says, your Bowie knife store prompted me to send this to you from a book I wrote about my dad's World War II experiences. Well, very cool. Thank you so much for that. I tell you what, that is very cool. I'm going to check that out more later on, but thank you for sending. I appreciate it very much. Roger from Ardmore. I wonder if Biden, that's meaning Biden, but Biden is to charge Americans to fly them out of Egypt. I don't know. I saw that. Right now we have a serious situation going on where apparently American citizens have finally been allowed to leave Gaza. What I do not want to see is us turn into a refugee camp for Palestinians because I think they bring their baggage with them. It's time for Egypt to do something. I want to know where Egypt is in all this. Egypt's still got a closed border. They're saying no. Louis from Trinity says, I was listening to the beginning of your story about learning how to call in artillery and medevac. Took me back to Fort Sam, learning my MOS as a field medic and then an x-ray technician, and the one-day training we had on how to use radio operations. And I was thinking of the one word you never use in radio operations that you need to, repeat. Say again, over. All right, anyway, listen. And then Gary H. Was asking the title of the bump song, and you already gave it to him. Yeah, thank you very much. Remedy from Black Crows. All right, listen. Right out the gate, go woke, go broke. I mean, it's a phrase that we've been hearing for a while. And listen, every time I do something like this, the same old tired stuff comes up. We know for a fact that there's more of us than there are of them. Charlene says it to me all the time. There's more of us than there are of them, and there are. You know how we prove it? When things like Disney going woke, that their numbers start to tank. Because they are confining themselves to an audience that is much smaller, if you will. And I would dare say that the vast number of conservatives in this nation are just probably pretty much collectively sick of all the wokeness that's happening in various different parts of our lives. Well, so if you go online and just type in go woke, go broke. And here's the way I usually do it. If I have a topic I'm trying first and I don't already have an article picked out, sometimes my search engine, I'll just go in there and I might type go woke, go broke news. The same stuff comes up. Politico, Axios, MSNBC, CNN, and they're basically saying the whole go woke, go broke thing's really not true. Well, I got news. It really is. It really is true. So let's break this down for a minute. Because, I got two words for you. Bud Light. Just go take a look. Where are their numbers right now? And by the way, apparently Bud Light just managed to get UFC to put them on as a sponsor of their fights. You know what that is? That's called, what's the most red-blooded place in the world where we can hang one of our signs? I don't know. How about the place where men get inside an octagon and beat the crap out of each other and bleed everywhere? That's a good one. Let's use that. I just want to know, though, does that mean Dylan Mulvaney's going to be a UFC fighter? Boomer?
Yes. Yes, it is. I would enjoy that.
Oh, somehow I feel like that would go badly for him. It would.
It would.
You don't have your camera on.
I don't,
see, you're
because I'm doing the weird things like I'm doing and making you laugh.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, so I don't see that happening. But Bud Light's trying to get the street cred back, and I get it. But so how about this? Let's look at go woke, go broke from state government. How about go woke, go broke from the business side of things? And how about go woke, go broke in the world of entertainment? I'll take states first. Yes. John, I'll take states for 100. Thank you very much. All right. Here's an article I pulled off of Daily Wire. Florida, headline, you ready? Dateline yesterday. Florida dominates the country for state-to-state migration while California ranks dead last. Oh, pray tell, why would that be? Well, there's a lot of reasons, and you can wrap them all up into one word: woke. So Florida, it says, is ranked as the #1 destination in the U.S. for state-to-state migration each of the last 2 years, while California has come in dead last in both years. So get this, you ready? Over the last 2 years, a net of 454,227 people have moved from other places to Florida, other states actually, to Florida. A net of 749,529 Californians have fled California. So almost, you got 454,000 moving from one state to another, making it Florida. At the same, so they got a net gain in Florida. California dropped 749,000 people. Holy smokes. Americans, by the way, are leaving failed leftist cities or states, and moving to Florida in record numbers, said the governor at DeSantis' office. This movement exhibits the success of Governor DeSantis' conservative policy agenda. Okay. It's a bit of a blowing your horn thing, but it's actually true. Florida, it says, became a safe haven for freedom-loving Americans during COVID, and the two states are moving in opposite directions. California is seeing an increase in crime, Florida is seeing a drop in crime. California's economy is at the forefront of fears of a recession with only 1.2% growth, whereas Florida, on the other hand, is ranked as the best economy in the nation, with CNBC calling it white hot. Cato Institute recently came out with a ranking, and they rank Florida as the top state in the country for fiscal policy freedom, saying we're dealing with things like taxes and government employment spending and all that. And Cato actually also ranks Florida first in economic freedom, which includes their fiscal and regulatory policies. And, oh, by the way, Florida leads the country in new business startups. So if you have any questions, remember yesterday first of all, California is a state of reparations task forces, and they have the largest homeless population in the nation. And you've got, downtown San Francisco with corporate flight, where people are pulling out their stores and their businesses and not wanting to be down there anymore. You've got just any number of pieces of urban decay, and it's not because people don't, California is a beautiful state. It's a gorgeous state. I lived there for a period of time as a kid. It's a gorgeous, it is a jewel. And they are running it into the ground with liberal woke policies. Things like, just yesterday, I talked about the fact that it's about to cost you $18 to get a Big Mac, because restaurants like McDonald's and Chipotle and others are saying they got no choice. They got to raise prices because the state of California thought it'd be a cool idea, a great idea, to make a living wage out of every burger flipper, $20 plus an hour. Well, you're crushing people with woke policies and taxation and high crime, high crime is based largely on woke policies. So there's that. Go woke, go broke. Take a look at it from state level. How about, though, I just saw a text. Hang on a second. What is this? JT Lacey Springs says, WWF, Dylan Mulvaney versus Serena Williams. I am thinking Serena's got him.
Easy.
Easy. Serena's got shoulders like a linebacker. She looks like she could take down most men. She's an athlete. She's a true athlete. And Dylan Mulvaney, no. Okay. Joe from Birmingham loves this too. Joe from Birmingham. Dylan versus Sylvia. Who's Sylvia? Oh, Sylvia. Oh, that's the one who ran for office in Alabama. Now, that's a closer match. That's a closer match. I don't know. I think they would just wear their pretty skirts and run around the octagon in circles and yell at each other. Alan from Arab says Dylan Mulvaney is going to be the ring girl for the rounds. David from Huntsville says, go back to my monologue. Thank you, David from Huntsville. Says, wow, Phil, Angels unawares. You didn't mention Iceland. Both our dads. Okay. And then Boyd from Joppa, sounds like whoever's running Florida ought to run the country. Well, he's trying to. We'll see what happens. I think Trump's going to wind up taking the nomination, but I do believe that if we didn't have Trump, that DeSantis would be a fine choice. How about business? I'll tell you what. Let's do this. Let me go ahead and take a break early, about a minute early, Boom. You go ahead and get it ready. I'll take it now, because if I start it now, 30 seconds later, you'll be saying it's time for a break. So I might as well go ahead and just take it now. We'll do that. We're in Go Woke, Go Broke. I am moving from state government to businesses. And I'll tell you what Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin just did when he fired a company because of their policies. Whoo, it's good. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, yeah, making common sense like a superpower. Man, I got something that I'll have to talk about here a little bit later. I was telling Boomer about the Marine Corps. I got to bring that up later in the next segment, I think, Boom. I got a caller on line one. Is that Sparky? Sparky from Harvest. How are you, my brother?
Awesome. Great show, Phil and Boomer.
Thanks, man.
Speaking of state policies and economies, 2 years ago, my sister was passing away from cancer. We all flew up there to be with her for her last week and a half, and I had a chance to fly cheaper into Boston to go up to where she lived, or I ended up flying straight into Nashua, New Hampshire, because I can carry concealed in New Hampshire, and I wasn't going to get arrested at the airport for having a weapon checked in my bag for my own protection while I was up there.
Nice.
Not knowing how long I'd be there. So, I mean, Massachusetts and their airport authority, they lost a lot of revenue from their own absurd little policies and practices.
Oh yeah, and they do stuff, and they do it like they're in a vacuum, like it's never going to have any kind of interstate impact. But that's one example for you. The Florida California thing I said a minute ago. I mean, what do they think is going to happen in California? They're going to gain more people by raising taxes and making it more difficult to live. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, I've got two completely different old-time friends from way back who both retired each in their own way from Southwest Airlines, and they've both moved to Florida from California because for a variety of reasons. But number one, they can't afford the taxes and taxation without representation. Yeah. When you're paying egregious taxes and you agree in any way with where your tax money is being used, it's one thing. But when you watch your tax revenues going to I don't know, don't even get me started on what California's doing with all their tax revenue, besides running themselves into billions in debt. But like you said, what a beautiful state, what a interesting and beautifully diverse geographically state California is, and to see it's tragic to me. It hurts my heart to see what they're doing in California. Yeah,
I mean, were you ever stationed out there at all?
I spent a lot of time in and out of California in the U.S. Army. Yeah. I got to fly all over that state, and it was an awesome place.
Well, was, and in many ways still is. And what's crazy is there's actually conservatives that still live there. They're like holding the fort right now. I feel like they're in the Alamo, but still. Yeah.
Well, they were instrumental in trying to break away and form a new state. What was it? I don't know what they were going to call it, but it was a combination of parts of California and Oregon were going to be an all-new state, and I thought that was really interesting. It was very telling to me.
Well, there's a huge movement right now in Eastern Oregon to break away and become part of is it Idaho? I think it's Idaho next door, and there's actually, I want to say there are 11 or 12 counties that have now actually voted and approved a referendum at the local level to break off. But it would require congressional approval. You can't change the state borders without congressional approval. So it's crazy.
Absolutely. And I've got a military retiree friend in Idaho. He said it is such an unbelievably wonderful place. But he's scared because there's an influx of Californians like he's never seen in his life. And he's like, okay, slow down. don't bring your policies and practices here. Don't ruin this place.
Yeah, wipe your feet before you come in. Thank you very much. All right. Hey, thanks, Mark. Appreciate the call, man.
Y'all be good. Bye.
See you. You know what's funny, too, Burma, there's an old movie, you probably don't remember it. Lee Majors, who starred as a $6 Million Man back in the 70s, he starred in a movie called, I think it's called The Last Race. But it was basically like a post-apocalyptic kind of movie. And everybody had been required to go to electric cars in what was left of America. And what was left of America was mostly the East Coast, except people knew of a place they called Free California. And so Lee Majors, he played a former IndyCar driver who had somehow or another saved his IndyCar, buried it under the floor of his garage. And he dug it out one day, built it back up, and broke out. And the race was for him to try and drive his Formula car all the way to Free California. And I'm thinking, no, I'm pretty sure you'd be leaving Free California coming like back to this Florida, Alabama, Georgia area. Yeah,
that's right.
But yeah.
Wow.
Jason from Huntsville just texted in and says the state of Jefferson, Northern California. Yes, nearly all of Oregon wants to be part of Idaho, and there are rumblings that Washington, east of Seattle, wants to as well. All right, so we are in Go Woke, Go Broke. Next on the list here, how about businesses? What about businesses? Well, how about this one? Governor Youngkin of Virginia just fired Eventbrite. You know, Eventbrite is the one where they'll set up your ticket sales for your events. They'll help you compile and, collect on your ticket sales so you don't have to do it yourself. Well, Eventbrite's gotten super woke. Eventbrite just canceled Riley Gaines. They basically got out ahead of the ticket sales and said, we will not allow a Riley Gaines, women's event to be an Eventbrite ticket sale. Well, Glenn Youngkin said, well, hang on a second. We use Eventbrite at the state level for state functions. And he fired him. He said, when a company decides it's going to make statements on political and social issues, they got to live with the consequences, and the blowback here has been warranted. And he points out, he says, Eventbrite continues to carry events that support Hamas, but they won't let Riley Gaines sell tickets. And so he just basically said, consumers can fire them. In our case, we fired them. Go woke, go broke. Eventbrite just found out they lost a contract with the state of Virginia. And then, as you might expect, there's the world of entertainment. So I did not know this, but I remember the pieces of it now, and I'm putting the threads together in my mind. Story here on townhall.com. Netflix went super woke in the last few years. Netflix has apparently learned their lesson. We can't do that. And so Netflix came back, was it last year? And they agreed to do a Dave Chappelle comedy show. By the way, Dave Chappelle's he's not a conservative, all right? Let's not mistake that for conservatism. But Dave Chappelle is also very outspoken on the transgender movement. And Netflix gets all of the blowback. Oh, Lord. And the amplified outrage from people on social media claiming they're gonna run away from Netflix, and all of their LGBTQ2IA plus acronym employees inside of Netflix lashed out and claimed that it created a hostile environment. So what did Netflix do? They kept the Dave Chappelle show. The boardroom decided not to take a knee. And they also posted on their employment website that they were accepting of all type people, but if you were against free speech, that you might want to find a job somewhere else. And it worked. And they are now, by the way, Netflix just posted quarterly reports that were glowing better than any other subscription service, whereas you got people like Peacock and Paramount Plus and Disney Plus that are all like hemorrhaging money. Netflix is actually going up. Well, the one they compare this to, though, is Disney. What the heck, Disney? Disney. They're trying to, story here on PJ Media. It says, how do you remake a Snow White before it's even been remade? Well, they're going back to the drawing board. They got caught trying to use their intersectional magical fairyland hipsters instead of Seven Dwarfs. Their Snow White doesn't look like Snow White. And she also demeaned the first movie and said that Prince Charming was a stalker. And they just had to go ahead and put another $100 million into redoing what they've already done. It's now one of the most expensive movies on record, and it hadn't even come out yet, and they're losing money. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. Alabama's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios for hour number 2. Man, we got the local, the state, the national, covering down on all of the issues. And like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, listen, we're gonna shift gears here, going now to the second part of the Triple Dipper on the home front, and something came up just a few minutes ago. I showed Boomer. I said, "You hate it when you think, why would they do that? What do they know?" On the home front, let's go ahead and be pragmatically, aware of the fact that this is a dangerous world. It just is. I mean, I am of the firm belief that if you're one of those, listen, let me back up. Use your sentence. Use your words, Phil. Raised my kids. And I talk to my wife, and not like I have to really convince her, but she knows, but keep your head on a swivel. When you walk out of Walmart, the worst thing you can do is be staring head down into your phone, right? You walk out and you keep your head on a swivel. You're aware of your surroundings. You know what's going on around you. You're keen to know, why is that guy standing behind my car? You look at it and go, who's that person that's watching me instead of loading their car? You be aware of your surroundings at all times. Let me encourage you, please raise your kids that way. Tell them, put the phone in your pocket, walk to your car. You can look at your phone once you're inside. That's just part of life. Let's take that from the micro level there up to the macro level. The same is true as a nation, that we should have our head on a swivel. We should be watching things. We should know. Verse in the Old Testament, and once again, I need to go back and check the address, but we're talking about a description of what was known as David's mighty men. And they were some cool dudes, man. I always picture, whenever I read that whole section there about David's mighty men, I get the image of like the scenes from Braveheart where William Wallace and some of his main guys sat around the fire at night. And these were warriors. Well, some of them were known as the sons of Issachar. It says the sons of Issachar, men who were aware of their times and what Israel should do. What was that? That was men who were paying attention, and they knew why what they were doing was important. They had their head on a swivel. All right. I look at stuff and I go, why? Why is that? What just happened? And then let's take it to the home front. It's easy to say the world is a dangerous place. What's happening in Israel? What's happening in Ukraine? Why do we care that Belarus has taken on tactical nukes from Russia? Why do we care that Poland feels like their own eastern border is at threat? What is happening with energy transfer within Europe and what that does to the EU? Why do we care about what's going on with Australia, New Zealand, and the Pacific Rim, and whether or not North Korea is going to stay stable? Those are all valid concerns. Sometimes, though, you have to look in-house. And you have to be aware of what's going on in your own home front. I just saw this. This was not part of my resourcing for the day, so I'm looking at it online. I actually found it on Twitter during a break a few minutes ago. For those of you out there, any of you, my jarhead ruffians out there, Semper Fi to you, former Marines or active duty Marines, a letter just came out yesterday from the Commandant of the Marine Corps. Actually, I take it back. You know what? He's not the Commandant of the Marine Corps. He's the commander of the U.S. Marine Corps Forces Central Command. What is that? The Middle East. Okay. CENTCOM, Central Command. This is Major General C.A. McPhillips. He's the U.S. Marine Corps commander for the Marine Forces in Central Command. All right, that makes them the Middle Eastern Marines. He just canceled the Marine Corps' 248th Marine Corps Ball. And I cannot tell you what a big deal that is. I mean, those of you that are Marines, you already know that's a huge deal. Why did he do it? He says, I hope this letter finds you in good health and high spirits. Regretfully, with a strong sense of duty, I write to inform you of a decision that I had to make regarding the Marine Corps' 248th ball scheduled for 16 November of 23, 2 weeks from now. So 2 weeks before a major event, for which I'm sure already have been a lot of groundwork laid, he says, due to unforeseen operational commitments and the nature of our current mission, it was a great regret we must cancel this year's event. Our primary responsibility as Marines is to ensure the security and the defense of our nation. It is this commitment to duty that has necessitated the cancellation of what would have undoubtedly been an exceptional evening of camaraderie and tradition. And he went on to say, I totally appreciate the amount of effort and planning and preparation that have gone into it. And he says, we must be willing to make sacrifices for our country. Please know this decision was not made lightly. The chief consideration is the need to uphold the high standards of readiness and the completion of our operational responsibilities. Semper Fi. Okay, I just look at it and go, what does he know that I don't know? Well, he knows a lot. Then you got this. Dateline October 31st being yesterday, Newsmax. U.S. Middle Eastern troops have been targeted for the 23rd time in the last 2 weeks. So the total of 4 bases where U.S. troops are stationed in the Middle East have been attacked attacked by Iran-backed groups in the last days. The Iran-backed Islamic Resistance said Monday it attacked U.S. and coalition forces at Ain al-Assad air base in Iraq, but the rockets didn't result in any casualties or infrastructure damages. 3 other bases were also attacked in the region. And it just goes on to say U.S. and coalition troops have been attacked at least 23 times just in the last 2 weeks. There's that. Then there's this. Originally, Hamas was not going to allow Americans. There's Americans of Palestinian descent. There's Americans who might be there for, relief efforts or whatever else. But there's Americans in the Gaza Strip. Dateline yesterday, 2 days ago, New York Post. Hamas won't let hundreds of Americans trapped in Gaza leave, says the Pentagon. At least, we're talking several hundred, apparently. American citizens that are known to be in Gaza that are trying to get out. Hamas is not allowing them to leave. We just found out just today, like in the last few hours. In fact, you know what? I just looked up on the screen. There's our great leader who's speaking right now about getting Americans out. The first flights of Americans leaving the Gaza Strip apparently happened today. So that's good news. But then let's talk about the home front. All right? What does it mean to us on the home front? And that's the thing I want to talk about more. It is real easy for us to watch a war on foreign soil and go, wow, sucks to be over there. Wow, hate it for them. Wow, how much money are we sending over there? And then you look at it, though, and go, wow, how many of those radicals have already come across our southern border? Wow, how many of those nut jobs who cry death to America and call us the great Satan, how many of them would love to actually just do something? How many of them watch what happens when one deranged individual tries to go shoot up a bowling alley like we saw in Lewiston, Maine the other day? And they recognize, if I did that, well, I'm just telling you, we have reason to believe, not just in a small way, but reason to believe that we are in a position where our home front is more at risk right now than perhaps it's been in who knows how long, maybe since 9/11. We're going to take a break right now. When we get back, I'm going to jump right into this because the FBI just elevated the internal terror risk to the United States to a whole nother level. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right. So I'm in number 2 of the Triple Dipper. I'm calling it on the home front. All right. So you gotta, like I said earlier, keep your head on a swivel at all times. It's not enough to just go, well, you know, crime rate's low. You keep your head on a swivel in the Walmart parking lot no matter what. All right. You just do. Same is true here on the national level. We as a nation cannot be so focused on what's happening over there that we are losing sight of what's happening here. And by the way, I'm not just talking about what the FBI and the CIA and others are assessing and taking interest in. I'm talking about you and I, Joe and Jane Citizen. We need to keep our heads on a swivel at all times. So here's a story that came out yesterday. I pulled this one from the Washington Examiner. So apparently FBI Director Christopher Wray, who I have problems with on most days, FBI Director Christopher Wray testified before the Senate Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee on Tuesday. He testified that Hamas's attack on Israel in October will, quote, serve as an inspiration the likes of which we haven't seen since ISIS launched its so-called caliphate years ago. So he's basically warning of the possibility of the threat of a terrorist attack within the United States. Says it's an extreme concern for the U.S. government and has reached a heightened level since the Israel-Hamas war kicked off. Here's a quote. He says, this is Christopher Wray, FBI director. Quote, the terrorism threat has been elevated throughout 2023, but the ongoing war in the Middle East has raised the threat of an attack against Americans in the United States to a whole other level. Okay, this is serious doings right here. In fiscal 2023, the article points out, this was on Washington Examiner. In fiscal 2023, that means October to October, which ended at the end of September there, Border Patrol agents arrested 169 illegal immigrants at the southern border who attempted to enter the country from Mexico without permission, who were determined to be on the FBI's terror watch list. By the way, that's 10 times higher than it had been just 2 years before. 10 times higher. Part of that's going to be because we have a massive influx of people, more so than we did 2 years ago. But the other part is something's up. There seems to be a more concerted effort for people on our watch list to actually get in. Went on to say over the past 3 weeks, the FBI became aware of calls by multiple foreign terrorist organizations to attack Americans and the West. The most specific call to attack the U.S. came from al-Qaeda, he said, while the Islamic State also urged its followers to target Jewish communities in the U.S. and Europe, and Hezbollah endorsed Hamas and threatened to attack U.S. interests in the Middle East. Okay, this is serious stuff. When the FBI director is saying it has now taken our threat level to a whole nother level, that's big stuff. Here's more quotes. You ready? FBI Director Christopher Wray, quote, here in the United States, our most immediate concern is that violent extremist individuals and small groups will draw inspiration from the events in the Middle East and carry out attacks against Americans going about their daily lives. And that includes, he says, not just homegrown violent extremists inspired by a foreign terrorist organization, but also domestic violent extremists targeting Jewish and Muslim communities. Well, they had to bring it back. Had to be some of the domestics. What about the idea that we might have terrorist cells here is what I want to know. In one recent incident, Wray said federal police investigated somebody in Houston just last week who had been studying how to build bombs and posted online about wanting to kill Jews. Keep our heads on a swivel, y'all. How about this? Second story on the same level of testimony, Post Millennial had this one, Dateline yesterday. In the same hearing, Director Christopher Wray said, the gaps in our intelligence are real. He said there is a possibility of a foreign terrorist attack on American soil. He says we cannot and do not discount the possibility that Hamas or another terrorist organization might exploit the current conflict to conduct attacks here on our very soil. We have kept our sights on Hamas and have multiple ongoing investigations into individuals affiliated with that organization. Yo, that's the home front, all right? That's right here in our backyard. That is no fooling. Keep your head on a swivel. Pay attention to your surroundings. Be aware of your times. But then it goes on. How about this? The Customs and Border Patrol, they put out BOLOs. They put out, be on the lookout for, they put out different other, situational awareness bulletins. Well, story last week, Customs and Border Patrol agents receive a new warning in light of the Israel-Hamas conflict. So townhall.com has this article. Authorities on the U.S.-Mexico border are being warned by the San Diego Field Office of Customs and Border Protection to keep an eye out for foreign fighters connected to terrorist groups. First reported by the Daily Caller, it says, the situational awareness bulletin sent Friday is titled, quote, "Foreign fighters of Israel-Hamas conflict may potentially be encountered at southwest border." It's a pretty clear title. I mean, I don't think you need to say much more at that point. They went on to talk about some of the symbology that they might have. They might have patches, that affiliate with Hezbollah or Islamic. I don't think so. I think they're going to be sterile. They're going to be coming across. They'll arm themselves once they get inside. They'll partner with the cartels and get what they need once they get here, in my opinion. They go on to say military-age males, military gear, weapons, camouflage, terror group patches, people who are traveling alone, undetermined return plans or associations to Israel. It has a whole list of things to look out for, warning signs. I think the bottom line is this. The biggest warning sign we have is the fact that our border is like Swiss cheese. Our border is porous. Our border does not even, do we have a border? Do we have a border? And I think the answer to that question is no, we really don't right now. We have a notional place where we can start getting you to pay taxes once you get across that line, but it's truly not doing anything to keep anybody out. Townhall.com again. Katie Pavlich has an article that came out yesterday. DHS, Department of Homeland Security, faces new heat after failure to explain its lack of vetting for Afghans. Wow. Okay. So this is one of the reasons why I would be objecting to the idea of bringing in Palestinian refugees, because our State Department has no ability, apparently, to truly vet people. They just say, it's too much trouble. Who wants to come in? That's where we are. Officials of the Department of Homeland Security received a congressional subpoena Tuesday after refusing to turn over documentation about the Biden administration's extreme lack of vetting during the catastrophic August 2021 withdrawal from Afghanistan. So it goes on to point out that Afghan evacuees were not at all vetted by the National Counterterrorism Center. They just brought over people who, were maybe good people, maybe not. I'm just saying, if you start hearing calls, which they're already there, if you start hearing calls for bringing Palestinian refugees here, just know this: the reality is they should be going to Egypt. They should be going to Jordan. They should be going to, for that matter, to Lebanon. Listen, I know that not every member of Palestinian society is a member of Hamas, but I can tell you that the vast majority of them hate Jews and cheer in the street and pass out candy and have a party and wave Palestinian flags whenever somebody in Israel or America dies at the hands of a terrorist. I see no reason for us to import that. We'll see where it goes. In the meantime, stay tuned. When we come back from this break, we're going to be calling in if you want to, 833-687-4448. You have concerns about the homeland? I'd love to hear it. In the meantime, when we get back, I'll tell you what some Republican senators said that they discovered when they got down to the southern border for a junket recently. And it'll curl your hair. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right, covering down on some major ground across the northern half of the most beautiful state in the nation. Listen right here. Listen, Alabama. And I mean to say, y'all, this show goes like way down south of Birmingham, up north to Huntsville, Tuscaloosa, back to Gadsden, parts of Georgia, Tennessee, Mississippi, all thrown in just for good measure. So I tell you what, real quick, I got to tell you, if you hear the ads playing during the break, which I'm sure you do, if you hear the ads playing, just know this: that's part of how we sustain the operations of Rightside Radio. If you love what we do, if you like the way we present it, if you think that Boomer looks great in a Tigger outfit, all that stuff. If you love this show, then just know this: we are a business like any other, and we are not owned by the stations you hear us on. We send them our show, and they play it. But everything costs money, and part of the way we sustain that is by selling ads. So if you're a right-side ruffian that owns a business that provides goods or services, you might want to consider that other right-side ruffians would be glad to support you. And part of the way you can make that happen is by advertising right here on the show. And we would love to have you. And you don't call the station to do it. You got to call us direct. So you go to our website, rightsideradio.org. That's rightsideradio.org. Click on the Advertising and Contact tab. Send us a message. We will get back to you ASAP. Love to have you. Love to have you. JT Lacey Springs says Southern border is more of a, if my texture would work, more of a state line. You travel across it, buy a lottery ticket, return at your leisure. Wow. Lou from Athens says awareness in a parking lot. Many people check their texts and store receipts in the car in the parking lot. Be aware of your driver's side car door is probably not locked. Most cars do auto lock at 5 miles per hour. Make a habit to manually lock your door when you get in. Good point, Lou. Great point. Speaking of folks that are in the car door all the time, or the truck door, one would be Jeff from Indiana. Jeff Rowe is on line one. How you doing, man?
Doing great, Phil.
Good. What's on your mind today?
Wishing your father a happy heavenly birthday. I'm sure he's looking down on you thinking, yep, the apple didn't fall far from the tree.
Well, I appreciate it, brother. Thank you so much. What else you got?
But, people don't realize the terrorism that could take place in this country with just a little bit of knowledge.
Oh, yeah.
People always think, well, they're going to go after hardened targets and everything. Well, they could cause more chaos than you can ever imagine. Just think what you could do with basically 100 train derailers, set out across the nation here. Just that alone, how much chaos that would even tell.
Yeah, the big ticket. I think the 9/11 was the big ticket. They chose to take out big hard targets, but this is, you're right. I think that's why I'm saying keep your head on a swivel, because I think what could happen in a small town would be far more devastating, and they could do multiple at one time. Think about that. But yeah, Jeff, your point's well taken. All the more reason, by the way, for us to be an armed citizenry. I mean, I think that being able to have your Second Amendment rights enforced, available to you, is a part of it.
Yeah. The Jews figured that out real quick, didn't they?
Oh, they started handing out weapons the other day. I saw it. Actually, had people could walk in and they would hand you a free AR style rifle, and they were just giving them out.
Yeah.
You walk in the door, present your ID. Here's your rifle. Thank you for coming. And so they're arming their citizens.
But just like with me now let me make the statement: I'm not suicidal, never will be suicidal, and I never intend to ever do any damage to anybody, or any harm to anybody. But I have the knowledge and basically the ability. I could put together a 25-ton fertilizer bomb overnight, and probably deliver it somewhere.
Well,
I used to be a blaster at a coal mine, and I'm a truck driver, and I used to drive the trucks, capable of hauling that stuff, and it would be so easy, it would scare you to death.
Well, that's the Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City. That's how they took it out. The whole building, what was it, like 12 floors, and just gutted it. That was
only a 1 to 2 ton fertilizer bomb. I'm talking, I could go 25 tons easily. So it would be a Moab. Now, like I said, I could go through Gadsden, someplace like that, and sit in the middle of town and let it off, and it would level the town, basically. That's what I say. Don't always look for hardened targets and everything. It could be all the small places that That would be more terroristic than anything you could ever do in a big city.
But you know what? You say that, and I don't doubt you, by the way, but you say that, and that's why it takes a citizenry that is aware of its times, because it's not going to be the FBI that first finds that guy who bought an excess amount of fertilizer. It's going to be Joe Citizen who runs the feed store. It's going to be the person who works at Home Depot. It's going to be the person who, sees something and goes, that makes no sense, and recognizes they've got a problem.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, they've opened the border up, and we got all these people coming in.
Yeah.
It's going to come home to roost, and when it does, I hope people will blame the Biden administration for what they've done and hold them accountable, because that's who's going to be responsible for all this.
Yeah, well, absolutely. They won't take responsibility for it, but they own it.
No.
They own it. It's on their watch.
It'll be Donald Trump's fault somehow, I'm sure.
Oh, there'll be some Soros-backed DA that'll find a reason to bring a new lawsuit, I'm sure. All right,
Exactly.
Jeff, where are you at right now, buddy?
I just passed Buc-ee's.
Oh, we know exactly where you are then. All right. Well, listen, man, safe drive, and say hello to your sweet wife.
Thank you, Phil. You have a good one.
All right, take care, bud. Yeah, so listen, the home front. On the home front, here's a few more for you, all right? And by the way, keep in mind, top of the hour, we switch gears and we'll go to the Grand Council with our buddies Jeff Poore and Dale Jackson. But here's one for you. This caught my attention, and I'm like, okay, why is there not more being said? Where's the rest of it? You just kind of like buried the lead. But Fox News, story from yesterday. GOP Senators John Barrasso, John Cornyn, Ted Cruz, and Pete Ricketts all railed against the Biden administration's border policies as migrants continue to enter the U.S. illegally. Barrasso says, we have just returned from our southern border. It's painfully clear that with Joe Biden's open border policy, our country is really at an increased threat for a terrorist attack. And then he said this, Border Patrol agents seized immigrants carrying with them explosive devices that he says were tailored for terrorism. I'm thinking, whoa. Where's the rest of that story? Where's the rest of that story? It's not just they're streaming across the borders, and it's not illegal immigration, by the way. It is mass migration. It's an invasion. You've got 160 some odd people on the terror watch list in the last 2 years. But then that statement right there, 4 senators. Border Patrol agents seized immigrants carrying with them explosive devices tailored for terrorism. What does that mean? They found suicide vests? What are they got pockets full of grenades? What are we talking about here? They got C4 plastique, that's been then molded into something that they can use? I want to know where the rest of that story is. It says, following the border trip, though, last week, Ricketts, also that Senator Ricketts, added the country is, quote, opening ourselves up for a terrorist attack. And Ted Cruz, who has led several groups of lawmakers to his southwest Texas border area, that's his state, he said the Border Patrol agents are frustrated because they risk their lives catching dangerous people, and then they turn around and their political superiors just let them go. Says what the Border Patrol tells us is there's no consequences associated with illegal entry in the United States. Cornyn said these criminal organizations that smuggle people and drugs, they're smart. They know how to exploit our systems. I agree. I believe they do. Well, listen, before I hit the break, and we'll finish this up after the top of the break, by the top of the hour, or towards the top of the hour. Let me take one phone call real quick before I go to break. Thomas from Athens. Hey, Thomas, how you doing?
Okay, well, I'm worried. The naivete of this administration is just beyond, I don't know if it's corruption or what's going on, but Iran has been wanting to kill the great Satan for 45 years. 45 years. Now, in the last two years, since Biden has been in office, they have $100 billion that they can go make nuclear devices and fund these radical groups. We've had 900,000 gotaways. If you were a halfway smart jihadist, would you want to get caught at the border, or would you want to pay extra and be a gotaway to go set up your cells? I am concerned that there are cells all over this country, and because they have heightened the alert, even though he said there has been a heightened sense of alertness all fiscal year and even last year. That's what he said, and this is the first we're hearing about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And then when I hear things like explosives being brought across the border, and and like you mentioned, how many gotaways? So if we know we caught 169 terror watch lists, how many of them were in the 900,000 gotaways? And this is why I'm doing this segment today. And I'm not an alarmist. I mean, Thomas, I'm really not. I'm not an alarmist, but I do believe in being pragmatic and, like I said earlier, keeping your head on a swivel. I think it's going to take citizens just paying attention, not being paranoid, not knocking people down just because they look shady. I'm talking about, but just keeping your eyes open and watching for things that don't make sense or that appear out of order. Like what would have happened if those 9/11 hijackers, if the person who taught the flight school, who realized they didn't want to know how to land, they just wanted to know how to fly. I mean, what if he had said something to somebody? It could have changed the world. But it's going to take a citizen saying something, I believe.
There was only 25. There was only 25 of those to cause our one 9/11.
Yeah.
How many is it going to take to give us the 48 9/11s that Israel had just happened on October the 6th?
Yeah. Well, Thomas, keep your powder dry, brother. Appreciate
Amen.
you.
Powder dry.
All right, man. Have a great day. Listen, we'll take a break right now. We'll come right back and put a lid on this one. And I'm not trying to be an alarmist. I'm not. But I do believe that we need to be a well-informed citizenry. Thomas Jefferson said that. I do believe that we need to trust but verify. That's Ronald Reagan. And you can do that, by the way, right here at home. I do believe we need to keep your head on a swivel. That's just me talking. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Hey, by the way, let me tell you about our friends at ZLA Solutions. That's ZLA Solutions. You can find them on their website at zlausa.com. ZLA Solutions, y'all, they are like epic good at helping businesses find ways to make their businesses better. I mean, that's even their motto. They like to say they don't make it, they just help make it better. ZLA Solutions, they can do all kinds of things with you, but one of their bread and butter items remains staffing. So if you need people, yep, they can help you find them. Doesn't matter how many you need. They can help you with the onesies and the twosies. They can help you with a whole shift of people. It doesn't matter whether it's in the service industry, the food industry, the manufacturing industry, hospitals, whatever. They work with all kinds of big name clients. If you need people, they can do the recruiting, the background checks, drug testing, all of it. And I mean like y'all. Blue collar, white collar, no collar, I always say. Doesn't matter. ZLA Solutions. They're there for you. ZLA Solutions at zlausa.com. That's zlausa.com. And tell them you heard it on Right Side Radio. I would appreciate that. All right, I'm finishing up on the home front. Talking about keeping your head on a swivel. All right, don't be unaware of your surroundings on a personal level, because I really do believe that stopping a terrorist incident is probably going to be a citizen helping make that happen. Don't be that guy, that girl who walks out of, I keep using Walmart, I don't mean to, but who walks out of Walmart with your head buried down in your cell phone, not even aware of your surroundings. Stay focused, be aware, keep your head on a swivel. George from Huntsville texted in. He says situational awareness and carry weapons at the ready. Okay, there you go. Gary H. says, I just got off my bus route and the song I'm thinking about is driving me crazy. I don't know. Okay, thank you for telling us. Brian from Huntsville, he says, Jeff driving by Buc-ee's, friend Jeff driving by Buc-ee's, please remember that some jerks might misunderstand you can versus you might on fertilizer if you broadcast it. Yeah, I get you. Point well taken for him. All right, listen, a couple of stories here to wrap this up. Keep your head on a swivel. Story here that came out of townhall.com. Third one I've had. They've been riding this topic pretty hard. The FBI is investigating more than a dozen migrants from Uzbekistan and other countries that were allowed into the U.S. after they sought asylum at the southern border with Mexico earlier this year. A scramble was set off when U.S. intelligence officials found out the migrants had traveled with the help of a smuggler who had ties to ISIS. What? There you go. Says the episode was so alarming that an urgent classified intelligence report was circulated to President Joe Biden's top cabinet officials in their morning briefing book. For some counterterrorism officials, it shows the U.S. is deeply vulnerable to the possibility that terrorists could sneak across the southern border by hiding amid the surge of migrants entering and searching for asylum. Well, all right. Kevin McCarthy, former Speaker of the House, he just came out there and said it. He was in an interview the other day. Where was he at? On NBC, I believe. Meet the Press. He says, if you look at the chaos right now, a wide open southern border, he said, I'm concerned about a cell sitting inside of America today. He said, when we're looking around the Middle East and the uprisings popping up around Europe and others, there could be sleeper cells right now in America. But this administration, he said, hasn't done anything to change what's happening on the southern border. We've got government funding where our troops wouldn't be paid sitting here for a month. And he's basically saying they felt the need to have to do that continuing resolution to fund. That was a straw man. He's conflating a little bit, but the reality is this. There's a Speaker of the House who's privy to a lot, former Speaker of the House, who says he's not going to be a bit surprised to find out we have sleeper cells in America right now, and it's because of the Biden administration's poor security and lack of effort to control the southern border. I agree. Keep your heads on a swivel. Keep your heads on a swivel. Don't be the one who walks in not knowing what's going on. Scripture says be aware of your times. Yes, absolutely. Keep your head on a swivel and just know this, it's going to be a civilian who winds up changing things. There's that. I'll take one call for the break. Mary from Birmingham. Hey, Mary, how you doing?
Fine, Bill. How are you?
I am well. What's on your mind?
I just love your show. I want to thank you for everything you do.
Well, thank you so much.
I'm just wanting to tell you that back in 2007, I got involved in a patriotic organization. We kept an eye on terrorists in America, and I just want to tell you, it isn't if or maybe. There are terrorist compounds in the United States. And we watched them trying. We had pictures of them. We had ex-military infiltrating. And we couldn't get, then Barack Obama was president. We could not get them to do anything. They said they'd have to do something first. So I'm just telling you, if they were here then, I can guarantee you they're still here. And these people coming across the board, they'll know where to go because they'll probably get their weapons there.
Mary, this
everything they need.
We got about 30 seconds for the break. Was that, I seem to recall that, was that an Alabama-based terrorist compound?
There was an Alabama base, but they were all over the country.
Yeah. Yep.
And it got scary. I had to kind of back off because they were suing us to get our names
and
our addresses.
Well, you're a classic example of keep your head on a swivel. Thank you for calling in.
Well, I do that.
All right. Thank you, Mary.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
Have a great day. All right. Listen, just keep your heads on a swivel. Don't stop for a second and believe that because, you don't have military experience or because you're just, somebody who lives and works in your small town that you can't make a difference. You stay alert. We stay alive. That's the way it works. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Listen, coming up next, we've got the Grand Council with our brethren, Jeff Poore and Dale Jackson. It's always good. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. Alabama's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Man, we got the local, the state, the national, covering down on all the issues. And like the dude just said, solid conservative and just plain right. Well, you know the deal. It's Wednesday. Wednesday, we call it Camel Day. We play the camel. It's hump day around here. But then it's also that day we do a thing we call the Grand Council. One of my favorite times of every single week. Two of my brethren in talk radio come on with me. We opine together and we just kind of see what's up. But let me go ahead and just check in with them and call the roll. So from 770 AM, 92.5 FM, WVNN in Huntsville, host of the Dale Jackson Show, program director extraordinaire, also writes for Yellowhammer News. Dale Jackson, are you here? You are indeed. All right, looking over next, we got him on the phone this time, I believe. FM Talk 106.5 in Mobile, host of the Jeff Poor Show, also the editor-in-chief for 1819 News. Jeff Poor, you with us?
I am present.
Yeah, and you sound like you've had a long day. So let's see if we can help you through the last part of it.
It's been a long day.
It's been a long day. All right, I pronounce a quorum. Hit it.
Assemble the Grand Council.
All right, I'll tell you what. Let's just go ahead and start with Dale Jackson first. Dale Jackson, what you got for us?
Okay, so you're a lawyer of some kind.
I've heard that, yes.
And I just have this question.
Okay.
We have a lot of people on college campuses going absolutely insane. Calling for the gassing of Jews, attacking people. At Yale, they were surrounding a Jewish person and pushing them and shoving them and things like this.
Yeah.
Free speech still applies, obviously, in a lot of ways. We've fought over this for years. I would say the three of us probably ended up on the losing side of this battle in the cultural fight. But now it's changed a little bit. Is there anything these colleges can really do? Can they just start saying, "Oh, you were at this Hamas protest, you're out"? I mean, is there really anything they can do if they're not getting violent?
If they're not getting actually violent, well, they got like Cornell today. They actually turned somebody over to the police.
Sure.
And that dude, for making terrorist threats on his social media against other students, he's facing criminal action right now. So, yeah, they can do something. They can also make it very clear that they will not put up with crap on their campus. I'm trying to think which campus it was just a few years ago. A group of students decided to do a sit-in protest in the Dean of Students' office. And the Dean of Students came in, it was Ohio State, walked in and said, well, here's the deal. You guys have a right to your freedom of speech, but you also can't just take over a building. So you're gone in 1 hour or we're going to disenroll you. And they all left. So, I mean, you got to look at what can be done. Part of it is like, how about just good order and discipline and not turning a blind eye? There's that. Jeff, your thoughts?
We never had this kind of problem before, though. I mean, like, it just, the problem seems, I mean, we've had problems in sit-ins and demonstrations. It seems like it's getting worse, it's getting more blatant. But, like, I think people just are, the cause is, like, tangential to just an excuse to go out and be belligerent and be this way. And, I mean, because I think Black Lives Matter was that. People just got to have a chance to blow off some steam, and we're not even talking about that.
No, we're not talking about blowing off some steam, though. We're talking about people that are actually burning stuff down. I mean, there's a big difference between having to sit in and burning stuff down.
Well, but that's my point, though, that the cause is not really why they're doing it. They're just blowing off steam. There's like something going on in the culture right now, and these people are losing their minds. And it has nothing to do with whatever Palestine or any of that. They just want an excuse. It adds like a meaning to their life or something.
Well, yeah. I mean, take a look at what happened during the BLM protests. What did it do for your cause to burn down black businesses? But they did, or to loot stores,
right?
Or to
they just want to be mad and tear down stuff and burn stuff. And I think that's the impulse is there. What is driving this impulse?
Part of what I think is driving the impulse is a breaking down of the fabric of society. When you've got the upper level, the Biden administration, take it for example, that's focused on all the wrong things and won't condemn anything and basically empowers people to believe that they can go out and do this stuff, then why would they not? And that's where they are. They're not enforcing any crimes against people that are doing. You can burn down a city block, but by God, don't be anywhere near the Capitol on January 6th. And I mean,
Well,
for the love.
yeah. But I mean, there's all kinds of problems. We don't. I think making government a deity like we have in the last 20 years, putting that on the top of the pedestal, and just kind of bowing down and thinking government can solve everything. This sort of breakdown we're seeing in the culture, where people get mad and like this upset, this enraged over civil or current events, is a product of that.
Dale, your own question. What are you thinking?
Well, I don't know the real answer here. I'm not sure how much they can actually do. I think there is a free speech angle to all of this, but it's shocking to hear people talking about expand the Intifada, gas the Jews. These are all things that are said, and that is protected speech, and we've got to realize that. But when they start targeting specifics, I think you're right. They got to start dropping the hammer on them. You get caught going to a kosher cafeteria with a pole, you're threatening people. You got to go, and they got to start putting people out and start saying, okay, if you start getting violent or threatening violence, you're gone. And that has to be like a mass move made here. That's what I think.
I agree with that. All right, let me take that thread and pull it in a slightly different direction. So, we can certainly look back on history, which I think too many people don't, and we can see what happened with. Next week is the 85th anniversary of Kristallnacht, the night when Jews across Germany, really across Europe, but especially Germany, experienced mass terror with businesses being burned, people being murdered, windows, rocks being thrown through homes' windows, and it was a night of terror, and it was really the harbinger of what was to come with the Holocaust. All right, all that to say, that anniversary is about to come up. The other day, the Israeli representatives to the United Nations went to the floor of the United Nations wearing yellow stars, just like the Jews wore in World War II. Yellow stars on their coats, except that the stars said the words "never again." Are we at a place in the world where Jews should be worried about a second round of this level of persecution like we saw before? Jeff?
I mean, maybe. I think it's more around the world. I have never really fully understood or comprehended anti-Semitism.
No.
Why? It seems irrational. It's such an irrational emotion. I mean, is there like a class envy or something? I don't. But it's you can't deny it exists. And I just think things are so off kilter right now that somewhere in the world it's entirely possible.
Dale?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think we are not that far off from the right social media message being hit where you could see people attempt something like we saw in Russia where they show up at an airport and get kind of crazy. I think you will see. I mean, the Russians allegedly, from what I've seen, have arrested about 500 people there.
Yep.
And I guess they're not going to tolerate that stuff. But there probably should have been a more immediate response on the ground there. I don't know what that looks like. I'm not saying mow them down or anything like that, but I think it is very possible. I mean, these people, for some reason, I mean, again, I think we talked about this last week, and I've said this a dozen times. I'll repeat it again. The motivating factor between people coming out and saying, I support the Palestinians, for a lot of people, is the slaughter of 1,400 Jews. I mean, that's the motivating factor. That they're responding to that with that response. So yeah, I don't think a next step where if you get a couple hundred people or the mob starts growing and them showing up, I don't think it's impossible. Not even in America. Not likely, but not impossible.
Well, I no need for me to elaborate much. I agree with both of you. I think that the world cannot pretend that what happened in the 30s and 40s couldn't happen again. And we have to have a vigilant, never again attitude. All right, last question. We got about a minute and a half. So what do you got for us, Jeff?
Real quick, this is an easy one. It's Trump violates his gag order, and they put him in jail. Is this where they get him?
Dale, you want to go first? That's your favorite topic.
Look, they have to build a single prison, one jail cell, put some Secret Service agents around it, and put him in there. No, they don't. They don't put him in jail for this. I think he continues to run his mouth and continues to get himself in trouble. But I just don't know at what point they say, okay, we're going to lock the former president up. I don't know.
Listen,
I don't think so.
I look at it. So I have in any number of court cases I've been involved in as an attorney. We've had HIPAA protective orders. We've had banking protective orders. We've had gag orders regarding certain information. I've had cases that were confidential that we're not allowed to talk about generally, but you cannot deny the case exists. But what's happening right now is Trump is in a unique position where everybody is willing to leak and or talk about the details except him. Why would he not be allowed to? They're out there. This whole case is about smearing his character, and the idea that he can't say, well, that guy's an activist DA. Well, for the love, are you that sensitive, Jack Smith? Jeff?
Yeah, I think, though, that this is going to be the test, right? I don't think it matters to his campaign. I think he goes up, if anything. But how far? What are they going to trigger if they do this? And will somebody say, "Hey, knock this off"?
Well, yeah, and that's exactly where we are. I think the judge the judge has to do his job, but the judge is at risk of basically making a fool of himself by trying to ask for things that no judge should ever ask for, and then immediately look at grounds for appeal. Because he did what he did. All right, listen, that's round one of the Grand Council. I'm with Jeff Poor from FM Talk 106.5 and 1819 News, Dale Jackson from WVNN up in Huntsville and Yellowhammer News, and just little old me, Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Round 2 of the Grand Council with Jeff Poore and Dale Jackson. That means first up, Dale Jackson, what you got, round 2?
Well, why does it seem like the folks in the Alabama media are obsessed with the Alabama Library Association thing? And I include all three of us in this.
You're stealing my question.
Yeah, I believe all three of us are kind of involved in this obsession as well. Does the average person care about this, or is this truly just we're telling them, and then everyone's staking out their the political party? And look, I'll be real about it. I got a real problem with a bunch of government employees being like, hey, we should be able to show these things to your kids, and you should stop complaining about it. That doesn't work for me. So it's an easy fight. But is the obsession overblown?
By the media, yes. I mean, first of all, we can win that argument all day long. And we don't live in San Francisco. This is red state Alabama. By and large, we can win that argument all day long. Let's have that debate. I look forward to it. It's like saying, don't throw me in that briar patch. I can have that argument. But the other side of this is how creepy that they want to. And that's the thing. Why don't you just, I'm not talking about us, I'm talking about them. Why don't they just ask the question, why do you want to have these books in there? And let that be the story. But no, it's book burning. It's Nazism. It's these jackbooted conservative thugs with their silly blogs coming in, and
they're coming for your libraries.
Don't you know they were all owned by the Alabama Policy Institute at some point in the past, funded with dark money from out of state. Anyway, it's ridiculous. Meanwhile, we got Kyle Whitmire winning a Pulitzer for God knows what. Weigh in here, Jeff.
No, I agree with that, but we're the three of us are obsessed with it because this is what we do for a living. I mean, like, what else are we going to do?
Well, and because we
Talk about
care.
Sports?
We care.
Well, furthermore, though, to me, it's a bigger point. Like, we can have debates about what's proper, what isn't. We never got that opportunity to, but by the way, we can do that all the time. But it's a bigger part of what Dale says. This is a product of a bureaucracy of government employees just being preachy and a holier than thou and knowing it all and telling us how to live our lives. I don't want that in my life. I don't want my tax dollars going for that. I think that these libraries are out of control and need to be smacked back down.
Well, all right. Dale, your own question. Sum it up.
Hey, look, I'm all for the legislature coming together and being like, hey, you know that art and history, whatever thing they were talking about, archives and history? Yeah, watch this. Hey, libraries, you guys want to do that? Yeah, watch this. I'm all for it. Come in and start swinging around that axe, cutting their funding. If this is how they want to operate, out of step with the citizens of the state and reality, then come in and bring the axe. But that's got to be the end game of this, not just attention for attention's sake, like the vaccine stuff they said, or the doctor, the state health officer stuff. And when it all dies down, they just forget about it. I want to see some actual action here.
Well, okay, so let me take my next question because I was going to head down that road. I'll stick with the theme, libraries, but action. So we just had the state director of the Library Association agree to pull out of the American Library Association, that same organization run by a self-proclaimed socialist, trans, queer, whatever. And I look at it and go, okay, that appears to have been grassroots. I think that was, me personally, I'll sum up my own answer right now. I think that was an example of the grassroots and media outlets like ours all getting out there and saying, stop the friggin' madness. And I think it worked this time. What do y'all think? Dale first.
Well, I think you're right about that. I think there's a grassroots side to it, and there's also the fact that, the governor responded to the grassroots side of it and sort of put it on him and kind of made the point that you can either come along or you can get run over. And they said, okay, fine, we'll come along on this. And that's why you got the whole, golly, this librarian feels abandoned by the governor and like all this other ridiculous nonsense that you're seeing from these people. So I think it is grassroots, but I think, official Montgomery is responding well.
Jeff, you got about a minute. Weigh in.
No, I think the governor jumping into it was probably where the tide changed. I don't know if she's responded to the grassroots or not. Because she doesn't respond any other time, so why this time? But the governor had a lot to do with it.
She didn't come up with it on her own.
No, she didn't. She did not. Jeff, you got a 1 minute question for us?
Yeah, real quick. Fair game or not, cross-dressing Smith Station's mayor, should it have been reported?
Wow. Well, I think so, and I hate that he's gonna face the blowback that he's gonna face. But I think he can't live that dual life and expect nobody to question it, especially when you're a pastor baptizing kids. Dale.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely fair game. Like you just said, he's a pastor. People have a right to know that stuff, and I just want to know if 1819 News, which is formerly owned by the Alabama Policy Institute, is going to cover all of Jeff's fees for following that guy around to strip bars and all those different places.
The nightlife of Smith Station, huh?
Did you keep the receipts, Jeff? I mean, is that how it worked or what?
He's a thick transgender woman. Watch out.
No. I have a company credit card.
Oh, okay. 1819's got a different budget. All right. Hey, fellas, I appreciate you both, as always. Jeff Poor, FM Talk 1065 in Mobile, host of the Jeff Poor Show every morning, and also, by the way, the editor-in-chief for 1819 News. And then Dale Jackson, morning show guy on WVNN 770 AM 92.5 FM up in Huntsville. And, oh, by the way, he also writes regularly for Yellowhammer News. And just little old me, Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Just covering down on some major ground across the northern half of the most beautiful state in the nation. I mean, argue with me on that if you want to, but I believe it. And there it is, Alabama. And I'm saying, by the way, folks, this show, wow, goes like way down south of Birmingham, up north of Huntsville, Tuscaloosa, back to Gadsden, parts of Georgia, Tennessee, Mississippi, all thrown in just for good measure. So I got a lot of text messages. I'm going to get to those in a second. But let me tell you who else, by the way, covers a lot of ground. Southern Immediate Care. Southern Immediate Care, one of the sponsors of this show. Southern Immediate Care is a chain of clinics across the northern swath of our listening area. And they cover a lot of ground in places like Gadsden, Anniston, Atala, 5 locations around the Birmingham area. 2 newest ones, I believe, were Chelsea and Hoover. Yeah, Southern Immediate Care, open 7 days a week. 7 days a week. Think about this. You wake up on a Saturday morning. This is the example I always give because we raise kids. Southern Immediate Care is open on Saturday morning and your kids wake up with a fever on Saturday. What do? Do you wait till Monday? No. Southern Immediate Care is open and they will see all ages, pediatric to geriatric. And I mean, look, walk-ins are welcome. Make an appointment if you need to. You can get your shots at the same place. You can get your x-rays right there at the same place. And so here's the deal, folks. This is who I use personally. And I've been using them a lot longer than they've been advertising on the show. Heck, they're advertising on the show because I've been using them. Every time I've walked in the door, friendly, courteous, clean, professional. I'm just going to say, Southern Immediate Care. You need something medically, check them out. Find the location nearest to you online and just head on down. They will take care of you. Southern Immediate Care. Thanks for being a sponsor of the show. And by the way, tell them you heard about it on Rightside Radio. So let me just, Boomer, we're going to have to do text messages. I'm going to have to. 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. So far today, we covered Go Woke, Go Broke. We covered On the Home Front, keeping your head on a swivel. And then you heard the conversations there on the Grand Council, which could have sparked any number of things to be interested in. Who else we got here? Raven from Russellville just texted in a little while ago. He says, standing to in Russellville, Colonel, at the ready on a moment's notice. There's still a bunch of us out here. I know it. See, that's what I'm talking about. And by the way, that ain't crazy. Nothing at all. The reality is we as a people have got to keep our heads on a swivel. Got to. Listen, the guy who... You remember the big church? I talked about it the other day. The big church shooting in Texas. Gosh, what was it? Sutherland Springs. Sutherland Springs. It was a civilian who armed himself that took out the shooter, who had killed a number of people but didn't get away. The guy took him out. Right? Citizens being aware of their surroundings is a big, big deal. Ron from Brownsboro says the most powerful terror group towards peace-loving Christians seems to be the United States federal government. After September, that's a pragmatic look. He said after September 11, 2001, we got the Patriot Act. That was a power grab for the federal government. The danger is not a terror cell, but the loss of freedom to the federal government after the attack. For liberals, a terror attack is simply an opportunity to gain control over the population, centralization of power, Marxism. And he says, real liberty comes from God through Jesus Christ, not from our government. Well, I agree with that, but I listen, Ron. Don't be so anti-government. Government has a place. Even Jesus said, "Render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's." So government has a role. It does, and the problem we have though is that government exceeds its role, and listen, just don't get so down on it that you forget that it has a role. Jason from Huntsville says, Phil, I believe the elephant in the room that Jeff Poor alluded to is mental health. People are so much more irrational in their reactions to everything around them now than they were 20 years ago. And the shiny, happy, sunny drug commercials are not helping. Well, that is true. If I see one more shiny, there's this one commercial, I can't stand it. I mean, it comes on and I'm embarrassed for the people in the commercial. I won't say what product because next thing you know, I'll get calls going, you can't talk down about our product. Sure I can. But nonetheless, I won't. It's just a stupid commercial. But I do believe though, Jason, I think one of the things that we're seeing is right now, I think that evil feels empowered. I think that evil feels emboldened because evil's been allowed to get away with being evil, especially in the last few years. Something about since 2020, it has been, the war in the heavenlies appears to be like really raging right now, in my opinion. And we're seeing the spillover as evil is just been allowed to be evil by, corrupt district attorneys and prosecutors who just choose not to prosecute crime, or liberal mayors who and city councils who put in policies that defund the police and make your streets unsafe, and then on top of that, you've got any number of things happening that are very obviously designed to do nothing but tear down society, like, California making transgender sanctuary laws so kids can be taken from parents if you won't agree to allow them to have their gender affirming care. I mean, at every turn, it appears that evil has been allowed to be evil. The BLM riots, that wasn't civil unrest. That was evil. Let's call it what it is. Joe from Birmingham, well, you know what? Joe from Birmingham, there's affirmation. He says, it's called evil, and there's that. Swivelhead Joe, he calls himself. Swivelhead Joe. I'm digging it. JT Lacey Springs, Huntsville 2019, the IHOP at Drake Avenue. Yes, that's true. Customer becomes irate over an order, goes to his car, returns and kills one waiter, injures a second, who's his son. He draws and kills the assailant. The assailant had twice before been charged for firearm violations, but they were dismissed. Wow. All right, and then Gary H. loves our bumps. I guess you're answering them already, aren't you? I see that. I see your answers popping in as I'm looking at it. So, Gary H., thank you very much. Yeah, that, by the way, Right Now by Van Halen is also the ringtone on my phone. It's one of my favorite songs. It's a great song. All right, listen, we got plenty more where that came from. And it doesn't look like I'm going to get to number 3 on the Triple Dipper, so it may wind up affecting my grade from John. But I can't help it, John. When the content is so rich and so thick and the participation by the audience is so good, listen, that should mean something. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, okay, I got to ask you a question.
All right, shoot.
All right, as you raise your kids, young kids.
Yep.
What is your thought on why, how do I phrase this? The library situation with the books that are put in that they don't want to take out of the kids section. What is your perception of how to deal with that? I mean, and I'm not talking about, what should the media be doing better? Let's put it that way.
Ooh, what should the media be doing?
Yeah. You heard Dale's question a while ago. Why is the media constantly allowing this to be, seen in a different light?
Well, one, I think the media should. Well, we say it a lot. I think they should stay in their lane and stop trying to push stuff on us.
Oh, okay. There's that.
And I think there is a place for media, and sure. I think it can be good, but I also think that it's being used for the wrong reasons right now. And I think that, and maybe not all media, I'm not saying all media, but I think there's a grand total. There's a lot of them out there that are being used for the wrong reasons and pushing things, pushing agendas, pushing different products, pushing different things that probably shouldn't even be out there in the first place. And maybe even on the flip side, the people that are running those companies have their own views and are trying to push it. Or the people that are running the companies.
The media companies?
The media companies.
Yeah.
Because there are people that run those companies.
Oh, yeah.
They're pushing their own personal views on those people that are actually running the companies that have to do their job and push it out.
Well, yeah, Jeff Bezos.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, Jeff Bezos, he actually owns the Washington Post now. Washington Post is one of the most liberal.
And you probably could go back and look at all of the company that owns a company that owns a company that, is a whole line of companies, and there may be a giant clump of them that are owned by the same 2 or 3 either people or a few organizations that are owned by a couple. It's just a lot of.
You're absolutely right, and I think one of the things that frustrates me about it too is it's a different like this show right here. You and I sit here. We make no bones about it. This is a conservative opinion-based show.
Right.
We're going to report things that maybe you won't get through the mainstream media, but we also have an opinion, and we say that. That's why the show exists. We are providing the conservative view. The people who portray themselves as being news, they're supposed to be in the middle. saying, here's all the facts.
Well,
And
that's
let
what
me
they're
ask the
supposed to
hard
be.
questions so that we can get to more facts. And they won't ask the hard questions.
No, there aren't any really hard questions anymore. It's more of let me do a little bit more fluff, or let me put a little bit more fear in the people that are watching or listening.
yeah.
Because as we've seen in the past, fear controls people. And we should not live by fear, but for some reason that gets a grip on those people that aren't strong in their faith or aren't strong in their own personal beliefs. And that fear almost controls some people, and the media knows that.
And they do know that, and they act on that clickbait all the time.
Yep.
All the time. All right, brother, take us to a break. We'll do that right now. We'll come back and wrap it up for the day. It's been a good one. It's been a good one. All right, Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. We are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right. I'm talking about making common sense like a superpower up in here. That's where we are on this show. By the way, let me tell you about some other folks that got some superpowers going on. The Elm Foundation. Y'all, the Elm Foundation, they've been with us for a bit now, and those folks do some amazing work. Well, listen, as we get down to the end of the year, some of y'all are considering your charitable giving. What are you going to do with your charitable dollars as you get down to year end? And let me just point out something. You might want to find, aside from your churches, you might want to find the charitable organizations that do things like, emphasizing healthy and strong relationships and dignity through work and, helping people have a track record of self-sufficiency and understanding the difference between crisis and development, right? So it's a big difference. And so the Elm Foundation is literally out there working with people to improve their lives, giving them accountability, requiring of them certain milestones to be met. And y'all, they're having amazing success. So the Elm Foundation, based out of Huntsville, let me just check them out. You can find them online. Their website is, they're Elm Huntsville, so it's elmhsv.org. That's Elm Foundation at elmhsv.org. Listen, check them out. I think you'll be impressed. I know I am. And tell them you heard about it on Rightside Radio. I would appreciate that. So I got a number of text messages in. I will point out, Boomer, Brian from Huntsville. He says the show today was actually very difficult. And if John gives the Colonel less than a solid A, then John's going to get a B minus.
Giving each other grades. I like it.
But then John from Huntsville just texted in.
Oh.
And he says, Boomer, today you get a solid A.
Awesome.
And Phil, you're easily today's winner with an A triple plus. Perfection.
Ah.
He says, also can't wait for Boomer McQueen tomorrow. Just letting you know, extra credit points will be available to anyone who tells a stupid story of the day that has something to do with a camel. John from Huntsville. Thank you, John. We love you, man. Lisa from Huntsville just texted in, says, that library thing just needs to be stopped. If I hear one more person say, oh, those conservatives want to ban books, I think my head's going to explode, she says. The Nazis banned and burned books in the 30s and 40s. This just goes to show how little the next generation knows about history. Banning a book is a lot different than making sure that age-appropriate books are where they should be. Let kids be kids. You're so well said.
Yeah.
And listen, Lisa makes her point. I'll add to it by saying, if you can still order the book on Amazon and get a copy whenever you want to, then it's truly not been banned. All right, what the Nazis did was they made it verboten to have those books at all. They burned them. And then, that was also the only way you could actually have the book back then. And if they burned the copies that were available, they were no longer available. Well, that's not the case here. And if you take a book that is, like an infographic book on ways to have, sex with other males because you think you're transgender, if you put those in a kids section, I just have to ask, what is your agenda? What is your point? Why do you think that's okay? Well, we just think it's appropriate that they have the availability of information to give them the broader picture of the world as we know. Shut up.
They don't need that.
They don't need that.
They don't.
They absolutely don't need it.
It goes into the fact, like what you were talking yesterday, I believe it was yesterday, about keeping your kids, away from the different, was that you? Maybe it was. I'm getting all my things that, I don't know. But
what
the
other radio show
conversations,
were you working on
I believe
yesterday?
I believe it was your right side way. The conversations you have between you and a spouse, and maybe that wasn't. Okay, that was us. Okay,
yeah. That was my monologue
Yeah.
about Charlene and I trying to make sure that the things that are adult in nature might even be contentious, that you don't always air them in front of the kids all
exactly.
the time.
It's the same thing right there. Why would you do that in literature? Why? Why do that? The kids don't need that right now in their lives.
No, they don't.
Confusion.
Yep.
And then two, they don't even know what to think.
They're still learning to tie their shoes.
Exactly.
And you want to teach them about the various positions you can have sex in between homosexual relationships. I mean, I don't, what? And so I guess the other point too, though, is they're also, by the way, disregarding the concerns of a vast number of parents and deciding that they, as the activists, know better about what to teach a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That boils my blood.
I can tell. I can tell. David from Hazel Green just texted in and says, what happens to those on the terrorist watch list when they're identified trying to cross the border, turned around and released back to the border, or arrested, or ? If they were just refused entry, I'll bet they just find another way to get inside. After that trouble and expense of getting here, they aren't going to give up that easily. Point well taken. And David, I would love to be able to say, well, they were caught, so don't worry, man. They were taken care of. With this administration, I don't know what to say, David. What I do believe is that it is an absolute threat to our national security to have this southern border be what it is, especially in today's climate. And by the way, don't think for a second that even if everybody who streamed across that border, all 6 million of them in the last few years, if all 6 million of them were just people who wanted to get up here and take advantage of what America has to offer, that alone is a national security issue because, daggum, the systems cannot sustain what is happening right now. It is one thing to have organized immigration and allow people to apply and come here and better their lives and go through the citizenship test and profess to support and defend the United States as needed and, become productive members of tax-paying society. It's entirely another to develop an entirely new welfare class. And you come here and they demand certain things and then cities are being overwhelmed. I mean, if New York City of all places is overwhelmed, then think about what it's like down in Eagle Pass, Texas. Well, you got the little towns right there on the border that have population of like 29,000 that just had 130,000 people come across the border and demand things from that town.
Wow.
What do you do with that? So that's a national security issue in and of itself. And then go ahead and add to it the fact that 169 people on the terror watch list were also corralled up recently. Wes from Huntsville is concerned that a civil war is brewing. You know what, Wes, here's the deal. I believe that a great deal of civil unrest is brewing, but I don't think we're there. I don't think we're at civil war. I don't think we're there, and I hope you don't think we're there. But the truth of the matter is this. The Biden administration has done more to divide our society in the last 2.5 to 3 years than anything that I've seen in my entire lifetime. I mean, right down to, just calling us names for daring to have a disagreement. I thought he was going to be the uniter in chief. How'd that work out for you? All right, folks, listen, heavy day, but tomorrow's a better one. God's still on his throne. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Boomer and I back here tomorrow. We'll see you then.